I want to welcome everybody to Michigan Solar Stories tonight. My name is John Freeman. I'm the Executive Director of the Great Lakes Renewable Energy Association. And I want to thank everybody for joining us for our regular Thursday evening program to talk all things solar. Tonight, we're going to be talking about a program that GLREA is working on across the state, and we call it Solarize Solar. And this is a program that we have partnered with the city of Ann Arbor, who originated it initially. And then they asked us to kind of broaden this program throughout the state of Michigan to other cities and communities. And essentially what Solarize Michigan is that it's an educational program where we bring people together that have some sort of an affinity with each other, whether it's geographical or organizational. And then we talk about solar and the benefits of solar. And we also bring in a solar installer. And if a number of people decide as a result of these meetings to sign contracts, then the installer will give them a discount on the installation costs. But what I'm going to do now is turn it over to Megan Husted to go into much more detail than what I have done. Megan is currently a part-time employee of the Great Lakes Renewable Energy Association. She's actually the director of GLREA Solarize. And we're very proud and very happy to have her as a part of our team. Megan is a second-year master's student at the University of Michigan School for Environment and Sustainability. She is studying environmental justice and environmental policy. In addition to her work as director of the GLREA Solarize program, she is also a researcher for EGLE, that's the Energy Great Lakes Department of the state of Michigan, Office of the Environmental Justice Public Advocate on building community resilience in Southwest Detroit. So I'm going to turn it over now to Megan, but I first want to recognize her sponsors. EGLE is a sponsor of Michigan Solar Stories, along with Harvest Energy, McNaughton and McKay, and Homeland Solar as well. So with no further ado, I want to introduce you to Megan Husted, who's going to go through the program, and then of course we'll have our question and answers at the end. Megan, take it away.
Hello. Yeah, thank you for that introduction. Like John said, I'm going to talk a little bit about what this program entails, kind of our successes that we've had across the state, and then ways for everyone to get involved, and then a Q&A at the end. Because I try to make this as succinct as possible, but it can be kind of complicated sometimes. So definitely want to make time for questions everyone has. So why Solarize? Why this program? Why get solar in the first place? I know a lot of you are already solar advocates, but this program specifically helps contribute to a cleaner environment. It helps combat yearly rising utility rates. And also the way the Solarize program is set up is that it promotes community relationships and those peer-to-peer relationships that you all have. And it supports local business because you work with local solar installers. And it also gets to take advantage of that group buy discount and taking meaningful action in your own community and to combat climate change, which is huge. So what is Solarize? Like John already mentioned, it is a program adapted from Julie Roth and their Ann Arbor Solarize program. And they had this toolkit that they used to implement it in Ann Arbor that we kind of adapted to be able to use statewide. So how the program works is that it is a community-based group buy solar opportunity that reduces the cost of buying solar. And there is a host and an organizer that brings together interested people for a meeting. So the host or organizer, they can be the same person, the same role, but it could be someone who already has solar installed, or it could be someone who's really enthusiastic about the opportunity of getting solar, or someone who wants to know more. That brings together their community members. So that could be your family, that could be your friends, that could be knocking on the doors in your neighborhood, or it could be if you're part of a church group or a community organization, just getting those people all together for a meeting. Definitely can be Zoom, can be in person. The best part about this program is that it's super flexible to your needs and to the needs of the people around you. So you can always adapt based on what you want to get out of it, which is great. So at the meeting, GLREA works with the solar installer or installers to educate about the program and the benefits of solar in general. And then after that meeting, interested people can get a free estimate from the installer on some of the costs that it would take to install solar on their home. So kind of a general overview of the whole process. Like I kind of mentioned, you find an organizer or a host who would be interested in sharing this opportunity with the people around them. You set a participant goal, which I'll get into later. The group buy discount is based on numbers. So the more people you can get involved, the better. Usually around 40 people is a great goal to have. And then once you kind of have marketed the event a bit, you find a solar installer who wants to get involved, who's able to take on a high number of clients. That is, if you get a large amount of people interested in moving forward with getting a solar installation. And then you schedule the meeting and share the meeting. So social media, through your networks, community posting boards, Facebook, all that good stuff to get as many people as possible there. And then you have the meeting, and that's where you educate, you talk about what the program looks like. And then after the meeting, GLREA will follow up with the interested participants, get them in touch with the installer, and just kind of stay in touch with everyone throughout the process to make sure everything's moving smoothly. And then you repeat as many times as possible in your community. So kind of how the group buy works is, as I mentioned, the discount is based on numbers. So these are just kind of ballpark numbers, kind of examples of what it could look like. So a 5% discount could be applied if there are 3+ new arrays installed. Same thing, 10% if 7+ new arrays, 15% for 10 new arrays. And the way the discount works is that it reduces the price per watt. So those are just some examples there of what that could look like for 10+ installations. The price per watt could be anywhere from $1.79 to $2.34. And individuals are also free to get other bids if the host or the solar installer fits the needs of one resident really well. You may find a better connection with another installer. And in my experience, sometimes the solar installer actually will still honor the group buy discount, even though if you are going with a different installer than the rest of the group. So that's great. That's another conversation you can have if there's another installer that you like more. And then another question I get a lot is about vetting installers, because I know if this is a new process for you, this could be a little intimidating trying to figure out what installers have the best practices. And so we would be happy to answer that question as GLREA. We have a list of vetted solar installers on our website. And I know Michigan Saves as well, a green bank also vets their installers that they work with pretty heavily. So all of those resources together will hopefully give you a better picture of what installer would work best for your needs. So to give just a more concrete example of what the group buy discount could look like. These are again just ballpark numbers, but the starting average price for a 6 kWh residential system in Michigan is around $16,000. Before you even get to the Solarize discount, you can apply the 30% federal investment tax credit off the top, which will bring that price down already in this example to around $11,000 with the $2.66 cost per watt. And then on top of that tax credit, you can apply the Solarize discount, which again has to be agreed to by the solar installer. So in one example, if 10+ customers agree to move forward with getting an installation, that could look like 15% off, and that's around $1,600 in this example. So the total discount savings can look anywhere between $5,300 and $6,400, just to give a more concrete example. So for anyone who is interested in learning more, or maybe interested in being a host or organizer themselves, we do have a lot of resources that kind of spells all of these things out in a more concrete way. So we have a toolkit, which is this over here. Inside the toolkit, there's an introduction, again, just an overview of what the program is, how to implement a program in your own community. And then it has more information on like participant and installer recruitment. It has sample meeting agendas as well as frequently asked questions, which can be really helpful. And it also has a event timeline. So the toolkit breaks down week by week the different steps that you can take to move forward in having a successful Solarize meeting, and then what to do at the event, and then what to do post-event. So it's kind of a one-stop shop for all of that information. And it has phone call and email templates that you can use for outreach, as well as different forms that could be used for collection, tracking data, tracking participants. It could be used for marketing. There's all of this is kind of organized into a Google Drive, and there's also video recordings of past Solarize meetings. So what should a meeting look like if it's on Zoom? Different marketing materials, so things that you can post on Facebook. You could post yard signs. It has an example of what a yard sign looks like. So a lot of information is in that toolkit. And Ann Arbor also has a toolkit. It's a little bit simpler, but it has a really good, again, overall kind of overview with some links and stuff that can be used to get more information. And then this was the business directory that I mentioned that has the solar contractors and energy efficiency contractors that are vetted on the website. So this is more just successes that this program has had. This is specific to Ann Arbor. Since 2019, they've had over 1,100 estimates, 500 plus installations, 3.7 megawatts of solar installed, with over 1.5 million in savings. And this program is ongoing, so these numbers continue to go up, which is great. And then since March of 2022 is when GLREAs got involved and tried to expand the program. So far we've had over 19 meetings, 250 plus participants, 67 plus estimates requested with 30 sales. And there's 11 ongoing projects currently, which is exciting. So that means all of these numbers are also going to go up. And that's not including the meetings and things scheduled we have in 2023. So we'll be adding more projects to this, which is really exciting. And these are just kind of an example of just where we have active Solarize efforts across the state. Like John mentioned too, it doesn't have to just be a geographic location. We are working with Birmingham Unitarian Church. So it's just church, again, community organizations, pretty flexible. So working in all of these areas, always looking to expand. So if you live in one of these places and also interested in hosting a meeting, definitely let me know. And also if you don't see your name, or where, not your name, but the name of your city or where you live, also even more of a reason to get involved so we can expand to those areas as well. So what is your role? So there's a couple different things that you all could do. The first is to become a host or an organizer. So doing the work to promote it in your community, having that meeting, working with the solar installer, and then working with us to kind of follow along through the process to make sure all of the participants have everything that they need throughout the process. If that seems a little intimidating or a little bit too much work for you at the moment, depending on your capacity, then definitely encouraging someone in your circle or even speaking with local government officials. A lot of city councils now have a sustainability point person, which is huge. So a lot of the work that I've done as well is trying to speak with those point people and try to get the city to even sponsor doing something like this on a larger scale, because they have more resources, more reach, which is really great. And also just spreading the word to other solar enthusiasts or even people who are interested in solar but might not know where to start. Definitely connecting us to them would be great. And then lastly, just reaching out for more information. You know, I can share the toolkit, could also just have a one-on-one conversation if there's any specific questions you have that weren't covered in this presentation, which I'm always happy to talk more about the program. So with all that being said, if you or anyone you know might be interested or even just want to learn more, you can definitely contact me. That is my email, or John, and that is his email too, which I can drop in the chat. after the presentation. So that way you all have access to that. And I know that was a lot, but now it is time for questions. I will stop sharing my screen.
Yeah, well, go ahead and, you can go down to under the reactions and kind of raise your virtual hand, or also you could just unmute and just raise your hand like this. Do we have any questions or comments? Oh, there's John. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Yeah, hi. So I'm interested. I live in Saline, so I'm not sure if there's resources to come out to this area, but I'm gonna dig into that toolkit. But we were thinking about doing something in the month of April, kind of surrounding Earth Day, to have some sort of a gathering in Saline where we would present this stuff. But so do we do that, or do we invite you to do that? I'm not sure what the procedure is.
Yeah, so it can definitely be a collaborative process. So we can get in touch and kind of start planning that together. But it's definitely really impactful if someone from that community is at the meeting leading it, because then they can speak to specific questions that community members have. But that's definitely something that we can work on together for sure.
Okay, great, thanks.
Go ahead, Nicolette.
Yeah, we tried having one of these solar parties here in Kalamazoo. Does your toolkit talk about how to actually make sure that the people who say they're interested do come to it? Or because the show, I mean, they went out to, the invite went out to a fairly large neighborhood association, and we got some response, but when we actually had the solar party, very few people turned up. It wasn't worth it, really. Does your toolkit cover that at all?
Yeah, so in the toolkit, we have kind of a page that talks about just different ways that you can do outreach. So kind of covering all of the bases. But something that I've found too in more recent months is that even if you do an in-person meeting, online meetings still tend to have better turnout, just because I think it's easier for someone to hop on a Zoom link than it is to drive to someone's house. So I think Zoom is definitely still an asset. And another thing is if you send out like a Google form that people have to actually fill out to then receive the Zoom link has also been really helpful, because then you get kind of an updated list of people who said they are interested, and then you can do more targeted outreach. So it's like if these 15 people signed up, you can email them directly and say, hey, are you coming? Better outreach that way than just like sending an email to a bunch of people. It's kind of harder to gauge how many people are actually, like you said, going to show up with that. So there's definitely stuff in there.
Okay.
I think we've also created some separate memos, because this has been another problem too, is just low turnout. So trying to brainstorm other ways. So there's the toolkit plus some of the memos together hopefully would help that.
Okay,
This is
thank
John.
you.
This is John Freeman. It's also based upon experience that you're always going to have a lot of people not show up, even though they say they're going to. And that's why it's really important that before you hold the meeting, that you get a critical mass of people that actually sign up, because then you're kind of factoring in that people are going to show. So we try and get at least 40 to 45 people to commit to coming on. And I just bounced over to the West Michigan Solarize meeting tonight, and they had 52 people sign up as of this morning, and they had 33 people actually on the Zoom call a few minutes ago. So
That's
they
pretty
lost.
good.
That's true, but they still lost 20 people that say, oh yeah, I'm going to be on. So in some ways, what might be a better plan is to build up a list of people that are interested, and then you establish the time for the meeting. That way you give yourself plenty of time to build up a critical mass of people that are committed, and then you set the time. But just like Megan was saying, we got to be persistent. We got to nudge people and remind them.
Okay, thank you.
And another technique that can be used, I've been working on the program in Meridian Township, and we have had some in-person meetings, but we've done some on Zoom, and so we've recorded them. And because there always seems to be somebody who has a conflict, and so we've actually picked up some people that didn't make the meeting for some reason, but watched the recording, and then actually joined the group discount. So that's another way to kind of at least pick up a few people.
And so the contractor would agree to the discount for the people who were the stragglers?
Yes.
Okay,
Usually it's based upon a period of time built around that first meeting, whether it's a month or two. Anybody that
Okay.
falls within that kind of window period, we count as a part of that group buy program.
oh, okay, so it's not just that night, they have a period of time. Okay,
Yes.
great, thank you.
You're welcome. We look forward to working with you, Nicolette, too.
Go ahead, Mark.
I can talk to Nikki later because we're on the same committee. But my question is kind of dovetails in with hers, which is, I noticed you had Kalamazoo on the list. So is there a way that we can get in touch with others who might be working to organize something and join forces?
Yeah, I can reach out to the contact person in Kalamazoo and then send them, if you want to send me an email, I can connect you all together so that way you guys can start talking about doing Solarize events together for sure.
Is that person Mary Ann by any chance?
I don't think so. I think her name is Susan.
Okay, I know Susan.
Well, there's
Yeah.
several Susans, but I,
Yeah, Susan Krieger, I think is her name.
Yeah,
she's on this
Krieger.
call.
And the other thing, Mark, is that we're having a conversation with, Megan, help me out here, a woman that works for the city of Kalamazoo in this scene, right?
Yes, her name is escaping me, but I will find it.
Jamie by any chance?
Yes, you said
Yeah.
Jamie.
Jamie, yeah.
Mhm.
Oh,
So
so
the
she's
city of
reaching out to you also. That's good to know.
Yeah, because
Yeah, so we can put something together.
right, and we can work in partnership with the city of Kalamazoo to help promote it and maybe put it on the city's website if they have one, or any kind of distribution list, so.
The county is also going to be hiring, God, that we just got a new title for it, a climate sustainability coordinator also. So we'll be able to work hopefully with the city and the county.
Terrific.
So very good. We've already accomplished making some connections.
Go ahead, Dave.
Thank you, Megan. It's very interesting. You mentioned that, let's say, communities or small towns might have, let's say, new departments for this type of thing. And you mentioned the name of what that might be. Could you say that again for me?
You mean like someone within the city that could help do this?
Yes, someone that might be in charge of the community solar or community energy as a whole.
Yeah, so a lot of what I've seen is usually their titles are like sustainability coordinator or sustainability planner, or like environmental planner or something along those lines. So usually it has like environment or sustainability in the name, and that's kind of how I target them. But usually if I reach out and they're not the person to talk to, they usually connect me to the person to talk to, because sometimes it is more just like a general city planner if there's like weird zoning laws in the area around solar. So I usually just reach out by that, and then they'll connect me to who I should be talking to.
Thank you. That's what I needed. I just needed to be smacked in the head so I remember it. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Go ahead, John.
Thanks. I was the organizer for the Chelsea Solarize a year ago. And I thought I'd contribute an idea for recruitment that I used. Well, first of all, Chelsea itself is really small, and trying to use the city as the organizer of this would seem to limit the number of people that could participate. There are a lot of there's a lot of population around Chelsea in adjacent townships. So what I did was I arranged with the Chelsea Library, which has a big library district that covers, I don't know, 6 or 8 townships, including the city of Chelsea. They allowed me to be one of their official programs for 2022. We did it close to Earth Day, like I heard somebody else suggest was an interesting idea. They put the meeting in their newsletter that they mail out actually physically to every household in the library district. And then they also helped take care of registration. So they knew prior to the meeting that I had scheduled, I think that there were somewhere in the neighborhood of 45 people registered to attend, and we ended up with about 25. So John Freeman's estimate of the success ratio is probably pretty good. And out of that, I think we got something like 5 requests for estimates, and really only 2 or 3 actual contracts, but I understand that there's still more maybe in the works. But the problem with doing that is that the library didn't want me to have a meeting with an installer, because they didn't want to appear to be supporting one business over another in the area. So what I did is I actually had 2 meetings. The first meeting was at the library, advertised by the library with a really good turnout. And that meeting, I talked about everything except I didn't offer them an installer. And I said, if you want to get involved in the group buy program, come to my house in 2 weeks. And the installer was there, and that's where the actual group buy started. And that worked very well. I think we had probably about a dozen people come to my house, and like I said, maybe about 5 of them actually asked for estimates. I think it worked out pretty well, considering the really sparse population density in our area, and it was a lot of fun actually for me. So I encourage other people to do that sort of thing.
Those are great suggestions and great thoughts, John. I appreciate that. Every kind of local community is a little bit different, and we have to be flexible in our approach in order to maximize our effectiveness.
Go ahead, Dave.
John, GLREA, if you're going to do that again, make sure that we all know, because I live 10 miles from Chelsea, and I didn't hear about that except for late in the procedure, and I wasn't able to attend. So
that's too bad.
I'll sign up.
Are you in the library district? Did you see
Yes.
it in the library? Yeah.
Yes.
And you just overlooked it. I'm sure a lot of people don't read that library newsletter, but it does get really good coverage.
It does. It does. Yeah, I'm out near Gregory.
I don't expect to do it again this year for some strange reason. Chelsea has been discovered to kind of accidentally have a zoning ordinance against solar that we didn't know about at the time. and nobody knows how it got there. I don't think anybody was denied solar, but that only applies to the city. But since we would expect like half or so of our participants to be from the city, I wouldn't want to be offering them something that's going to violate the zoning. But that's a different subject. That's a frustration, local frustration.
Well, maybe we could hold a meeting in Gregory or something. I'm not familiar with Gregory, but there must be some type of church or a community place, or we could do a Zoom call.
Or maybe down in Manchester. Manchester has a district library similar to Chelsea's, although it's smaller. I don't think Gregory has that, but that would be a possibility.
Go ahead, Dennis.
Thank you. Thank you, Megan, for your work in this area. We really appreciate that. And it sounds like it's moving across the state. I live in Holland, and I was out at the state park the other day, and I was just shocked to see how many solar panels were on top of the facility they have at the state park there. It was just covered. And I thought, that's great. Here we go. We don't have too many solar panels on roofs in this area, but it's starting to pick up. And we have one family in our church that has solar panels on their roof. And then we've been trying to encourage to get some on top of our church building also. But I noticed in your presentation, you used an example where it was a 6 kilowatt array and it cost about $16,000. That comes out to about $2.67 a watt, which is seemed to me when I first started talking to people about solar panels, they thought 2.8 per $2.80 a watt was a good reference point to be looking for. Is that still a decent reference point with the inflation and all nowadays, or has it gone up?
That's a good question, and maybe someone more experienced in solar installations might know more, but I was just going to say that those numbers that I pulled were from a research article that was published within the last year, so I'm hoping that it's pretty up to date. But yeah, if someone else wants to speak on that.
Well, this is John Freeman. Every so often, I check back in with the original company that hired me when I first moved into the solar energy space, and that was Homeland Solar. And I spoke with my good friend, Mark DeRogi, who works with Dave Friedrichs. And Mark said that $2.60 a watt is about right for him right now. As you've all might have heard, there has been some challenges with the supply chain across the world because of COVID and because of some other factors. There's a whole issue about Chinese panels having a tariff on it, like an import tariff that's had some impact. So, the price and of course inflation, which affects wages and those types of factors could drive up the cost. So, Mark thought that $2.60 is a pretty decent price, but of course it's going to vary depending upon the solar installer and depending upon your situation at your home. And I'm sure Megan mentioned this, but the typical way that a solar installer operates is that they will give you a rough estimate by figuring out your bill and figuring out how big a system you have. And then they'll use Google Maps, look at your roof or your backyard, you see how much space it will take. And then once they give you a rough estimate and you're still interested, then they will come out and do a personal visit where they will double check and make sure there are no hidden problems. And then they'll give you the final bid, so to speak. But I think for purposes, Dennis, that I think $2.60 is a decent price. And of course, when you figure out the price of the system, and then you have to factor in the 30% federal investment tax credit, and then hopefully you get 3 or more people that want to get solar, and then you can tack on the installer's discount as well. So the price will come down.
Go ahead, Marco.
Yes.
Oh.
So
wait. Margot, hold on one second. I think Mark Furta wanted to comment. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, and I thought John said Mark, but he said Margot, so I apologize, Margot. So I'm Mark Furta with McNaught McKay Electric, and we're a distributor for solar equipment here in Michigan. Been involved for the last 15 years selling the solar materials to the installers and contractors in the area. So we work with the majority of the contractors through the state. And I was kind of curious too, where the $1.99 to $2.60 a watt figure came from, because that just seemed very low to me. And I was curious if that's what you were actually seeing with these discounts. I will say $2.66 that you mentioned is, I would say maybe doable, but it's pretty aggressive. I would say that we're seeing things on average more in the $3 to $3.50, and there has been, depending on the size of the system, because there has been some increase in solar panels over the last year, and a lot of it due to the supply chain and the logistics cost and that. So I would say that $2.66 is not out of the question. But when I started seeing numbers like $1.99, I was kind of curious myself, uh, you know, where those numbers came from.
Yeah, so those original numbers were averages from Ann Arbor's program. So that was kind of just the numbers that they've been using and seen on average. And so since we don't have, I would say, a large enough sample size to make those numbers from what we've done just statewide, those are the ones that we've kind of put in the toolkit and use as examples.
And Mark, again, I think those numbers are the result of after the federal investment tax credit's been applied, as well as the solar installer discount. So,
well, and John, that's what I assumed in the beginning.
Yeah.
Until I actually looked at the numbers and did the math, because if you start off with the 16,000 before the discount, and I was trying to do some math quick while the slide was up, I think it was $2.66 to start. So,
Well,
but again, I just wanted to, get a little information. I am curious, Megan, that's interesting that you're saying that those are actual numbers that Ann Arbor is sharing, that's what the projects are actually coming in at $2 to $2.66. And we've been working and talking with Julie as well, because we're trying to do some things on the supplier side to help enhance the program. It's just, again, as John mentioned, the supply chain just dried everything up and lead times became crazy, and none of the suppliers were in a position to discount anything.
Yeah, in
Meridian
Township, we were seeing certainly under $3 is a starting point. So it was kind of like 290, 280 watt. But then on top of that was the federal tax credit. And then we just had modest discounts like 3 to 8%. So, we got down to, some fairly good numbers for folks, but our starting point was about 280, 290. But people, part of the reason I think that installers are willing to offer pretty good pricing is that they're getting a lot of free advertising. I mean, basically the community is bringing them customers, which I think for a lot of solar installers is worth a lot. And also getting the partnerships with the community. But Margot, go ahead.
Yeah, our Unitarian Universalist Church of Greater Lansing has been looking into putting solar up on our roof because our electricity costs have doubled. And so we're in a former school, so we're considered to be like a business, or I forget the category. We're not residential. Yeah. So could we partner with people in who have homes? Could we do that? Or should we partner with other organizations, nonprofit organizations?
Well, you know, one thing that's happening, I don't, at least in my experience in Meridian Township, is that the solar installers are happy for the business. And so that even, you know, like a church, you know, you're not going to have a huge solar system, certainly much bigger than a typical residential. And so I think at least locally here, the people we've been working with would be happy to have the church there kind of join a group buy. And we actually have one, we have about 4 coming up. One that's actually going to be kind of a pilot in the city of Lansing. So there'll be some opportunities for you to kind of join some of those meetings that are coming up, because our solar installer will go drive 30 minutes, which covers quite a geographic area. And so the church there could participate if you want to go that angle.
Margot,
Yeah.
this is John Freeman. I'm so happy you brought this point up, because I made a formal speech at the Birmingham Unitarian Church a couple Sundays ago. And I talked a lot about the Solarize program. And I said, frankly, that within the church itself, if 3 or more people want to get solar within the church, then we'll, you know, the solar installer will apply the discount as well. So the Solarize program doesn't have to be simply geographically based. It can also be affinity based, or within the church, and then the various congregants could very well be a part of the program. And during my presentation, someone asked that specific question, whether the church itself could be one of the partners to be within the group buy program. And I said, absolutely. So we would be very happy to work with you. And John Sarver obviously just said he would as well. So I think we could definitely make this model work for did you say the Lansing Unitarian Universalist Church?
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
Well, that'd be great. We'd love to work with you.
I'd
you.
like to talk about churches for a second.
Sure.
Before this year, churches weren't allowed to take the tax credit. And so we lease our solar panels. We have a lease agreement with the installer. And after about, I think it's 15 years, we can buy the panels outright. And so they got the tax credit. But if it's a really large expense for the church, you might be able to also find a lease agreement with the solar installers.
Well, that's a great point, Nicolette. But now that the Inflation Reduction Act was enacted last August, churches and other nonprofits can directly receive the investment tax credit directly. You will get a check back from the federal government for 30% of the cost of the system. And so I think the old model where you had to establish an LLC and have those people be the investors and the owners and receive the tax credit, that model is changing because of the fact
that model is changing, but it's also very expensive because a lot of churches have, like we have 70 some odd panels. So the cost is prohibitive even with the upfront. So that's why I was mentioning that you might still be able to find companies that do a lease back to you, because it would be within the budget of your church.
Sure.
And that was People's Church in Kalamazoo, by the way, Margot. So
Thank you.
Marcia, you had your hand up. Did you have a question?
Well, I just wanted to cover the nonprofit tax business. I'm glad you did that. That's very good. Yeah.
Did I do it correctly, Marcia?
I'm not the expert. You're the
Okay.
expert.
Okay. Okay.
I think that's so important because those are the kinds of groups that really would like to do solar. I mean, and they've been sort of stuck without being able to get the tax credit.
No, that's exactly right, Marcia. And that's why that piece of legislation that became federal law is really really a game changer. I mean, establishing the 30% for 10 years, and then opening up the market for nonprofits and houses of worship is so important, because, there are a lot of religious houses of worship that want to practice their values by going with green, renewable, clean energy. And that is really a wonderful development.
And I want to thank Megan. That was a very good, very crisp presentation, very informative. And I'm going to start asking around up here in Traverse City to see if there aren't groups that would like to hold that kind of a program. And there certainly are very strong environmental groups up here. And I don't know why we haven't had that happen. So let you know.
Liv, can you hear me, Liv? Do you want to say anything?
Yeah, excuse me. I don't have the best lighting right now, but I work with the Groundwork Center for Resilient Communities, and we will be hosting a similar structured group buy program in the Traverse City area. Hopefully sometime this year. We are currently running the second year of this similar program in the Petoskey area. So we are working on bringing this to the Grand Traverse area. So Marcia, I will make sure that I can connect with you.
That's good. Well, I'm not going to buy any panels. I already have 20. So
Well, I'd be happy to help with outreach and connecting with folks that who might want to join on. Thanks, John.
You're welcome, Liv. And GLREA is very proud to be working with Liv and Groundworks to support their program in Traverse City as well as in Petoskey.
Philip, go ahead.
All right. So my question is, how big of an installation would be required for the Solarize credit? For example, in my case, we already have 10 panels and an inverter, so we already have an existing system, but if we wanted to add to it, say maybe 5 panels or more, would that qualify?
I think it probably would. I mean, we would need to get other folks in your area to go in together with you, Phil. But you certainly could be a host of a Solarize meeting. You know a lot of people. I've known you forever, and you're very well connected with the local community. So we could organize a meeting or two and probably pull in some folks and get some estimates and get some contracts. And so I don't see why we couldn't include your system in that mix.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Other questions, comments? Okay, we're about 7:50 now, and let me just kind of ask again if there's any more questions or comments. Megan, do you have anything, or John, that you want to say to kind of wrap this up with respect to people who might be interested in kind of pursuing things?
Yeah, I just put my email in the chat again. So if there's more questions that anyone has after this that they didn't think of now or just wants to get the conversation started, please feel free to email me. I'll be happy to chat with you. That's all I have, John, if you have anything else.
Well, I just want to thank Megan for doing the presentation. She's doing a terrific job with GLREA, and I'm looking forward to working with her in the weeks to come on this program and other work. I guess the final thing I want to share with all of you is that GLREA will be happy to work with you if you're willing to host a meeting to bring your friends or colleagues together within your neighborhood or within a church or a community group, whatever, and we will partner with you in this effort. And we can send you to begin that conversation, we can send you a 3-page memo that kind of summarizes the program, and then you can think about it. But if you're interested and you're a little nervous about doing it, you shouldn't be, because we would be very happy to work closely with you and approach this adventure together. Let me put it that way. So I just want to thank everybody for joining us this evening about this program, because we all know how important it is to make that transition from fossil fuels to renewable energy. And anything we can do to educate people about the benefits of solar and to help bring down the cost of solar is going to make the market grow for people wanting to get solar. And I also want to thank all of our solar installers that are willing to partner with GLREA as well as McNaughton and McKay, because we're all in it together. We want more people to get solar, and we want our solar businesses to grow as well, because we're all building a better future for ourselves and for our children and grandchildren. So thanks everybody for joining us, and I really appreciate your support.
You.
Yeah, thanks, Megan, and thanks for everybody for attending.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Megan. It
Megan.
was excellent.
Thank